to my YouTube brothers. It is awesome to see you guys as well. For some reason, I didn't push it live. So now we are totally live on YouTube, TikTok, and, all the other places. It is awesome to be here. This is actually day 10 for our TikTok live streams. And it is day 3 for our... This is actually day 10, for our YouTube live streams. And day 3 for our TikTok live streams. So we're just kind of playing around, still trying to get the process squared away. But it is the first day, literally, that we are streaming at the time when I want to be streaming, which is right around 10 a.m. So I'm pretty excited about it, and hopefully you guys are. And maybe we actually get some folks to come hang out and join us and see what we're all about. We're going to be doing a stream today where we talk a little bit about pop culture, and specifically the pop culture segment of music, which I find to be pretty interesting. Now, needless to say, there are a lot of people that are younger than me on TikTok, and there are, all ages for the most part on YouTube, depending upon whether you're on shorts or you're using the horizontal long form content format. So I find it kind of interesting to see the music that's popping up as popular in TikTok videos and that sort of stuff. Not only that, but the kind of music that is actually charting or charting again, shall we say. I think it leans into the fact that, well, people may not be all that interested in current modern music or, the stuff that people are releasing today, unless of course it's Taylor Swift or something like that. But Metallica's music that's not anywhere near new has continued to pop back up on the charts over and over again, as well as all kinds of 80s music and that sort of stuff. I know I did a search on this, so I just kind of want to mention some of the interesting factoids that I found out while I was arguing with ChatGPT about actual thumbnail standards and that sort of thing, because it's so it's stupid. It really is. ChatGPT is just stupid. But the thing about ChatGPT being stupid is that it knows it's stupid. It will flat out tell you how stupid it is sometimes, which is nice. I mean, if you're going to be dumb, you may as well be able to admit that you're dumb, because then you don't have to worry. Everyone just understands that you're dumb. But Blink-182, Paramore, Avril Lavigne, those are tracks that are being pushed hard in TikTok edits at the moment. They're in the tops of the thing. Then you got Missy Elliott, Usher, Destiny's Child. They're getting used a busload in those videos as well. And I just find it interesting because, well, that's not anywhere near new songs. Now, those aren't songs that I find to be awesome. But they're fine. They're 90s and 2000s music. I tend to enjoy 80s music. And I'm also a big, metal fan. So, but I love the fact that 80s metal is still, well, let's be honest. It's a huge part of the lexicon, which I didn't see coming as a kid, because when I was a kid, albums like Shout at the Devil or music from Shout at the Devil, anything Metallica, anything Slayer, Anthrax, Testament, the stuff that I listened to, well, there was no way to hear it unless you went and bought the music. And when you went and bought it, chances are you hadn't seen them live or anything, so you just bought it sight unseen. Wow, this album cover looks like this is a metal band, that's what I'm going to buy. That's how we pretty much had to buy music, because they didn't play metal on any radio station. And really, MTV didn't show it either, really. And when they did, it was just mainstream metal, which I don't know even how you could call it mainstream. If you can't hear it anywhere on the radio, if it never charts, if nobody's ever playing it, then it can't be mainstream. But there was a massive underculture that kept metal growing and huge and went to shows and did all that stuff. And I was definitely a part of that. We'd go into record stores. We would go into record stores and browse for hours looking for new music because you couldn't hear it anywhere. So you saw this album, oh, and it looked like it had an interesting album cover. You'd pick it up because that was the only way that you could determine whether something was good or not. You'd look at the album cover and say, yeah, this looks like it's probably metal. And then you flip it over on the back and hopefully there's a picture of the band and it's a bunch of dudes in black with long hair. And you're like, yeah, this is probably heavy metal. So you picked it up and hopefully you got a winner. That's how you bought music back in the, the 90s or early 90s or late 80s. There wasn't any internet to ask. There was, you didn't know. You didn't know, and no radio stations were playing this stuff. Now I could go listen to the rock stations, and basically that stuff is probably considered oldies at this point. So if you put that on, yeah, I'm gonna hear stuff. I'm gonna hear the cheesiest Metallica songs ever created, and I'm gonna hear all of the stuff that I grew up enjoying. Well, not even, because they're still not playing Slayer on the radio. They're still not playing Anthrax or Testament or any of that stuff. They're not playing that on rock radio still. You still can't hear that. If you want to hear it, you got to go to Spotify, check it out, listen to it. 90% of the music that I've listened to throughout my lifetime has never been spun on the radio more than maybe a few times, except for there was a radio station when I was growing up as a kid that did a show. It was a college station, of course. They did a metal show that usually lasted for pretty much a full overnight. I think it was either on a Saturday night or a Friday night or a Sunday night. One of those 3 nights where the radio station would run this metal through the night. And we would just stay up and kind of write down songs and music and everything so that we actually had something to check out when we would go to the record store on Monday. Lego Tech. Yeah, now Sirius plays that stuff. But back then, there wasn't anywhere to go other than that one college radio station that would play it. And now, if you listen to rock radio, I mean, you could hear Enter Sandman. And you can hear Pour Some Sugar on Me. And, all of the schlocky songs that inevitably finally did maybe get some turns on the radio, you can hear those. But you ain't hearing, Shout at the Devil. You're certainly not hearing the Four Horsemen or, anything like that. You're not hearing the good stuff. I mean, hell, even Photograph from Def Leppard. No, we're going to play Pour Some Sugar on Me because we like people who feel like they want to stab themselves in the eye with a fork. God, I can't... that's one of those songs that I just don't care for. I don't know what else I can say about that. That song makes me truly want to physically harm an infant. I really hate that song. And, there's no valid reason for it. Lots of ladies love it. I hate it. I hate that song. I think it represents all that is wrong with Def Leppard and the metal world. But, what do I know? I'm just a fat guy who likes heavy metal. I would certainly much prefer. I don't recall on any channel or anything that I've ever seen, witnessed, watched, or anything, anyone ever playing Opeth on the radio. I've heard Gojira once or twice because they're like the big thing, and I just don't think they're all that good. There's a rule in music that I like to use. Now, I was involved in music for a very, very long time, and singing and everything else. there's a rule in music that I like to say, which is just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. And Gojira falls into the category of not very musical. I mean, it's abrasive and loud and that sort of stuff, but it's not terribly musical. And I feel like nowadays, extreme metal is just, well, let's see how much more unlistenable we can make it. And, you know, music is supposed to be musical, melodic. And that doesn't mean that you don't have segments where you use noise or noise becomes a part of it. But generally speaking, that noise is for cinematic or dramatic effect at certain points of the song. It's not the whole song, you know? So I do have, I do even not terribly care for modern metal quite as much as I would hope. About as modern as I can go is, you know, stuff like Lamb of God, that sort of stuff. I think that's plenty fine and plenty extreme without going to the noise side. Now, I'm not going to lie, I have enjoyed Gojira from time to time. They have a couple of songs I really like. But a lot of it is just, you know, skillful noise, which I like a melody and some quality, well thought out timing and that sort of stuff. To me, that makes for much more interesting music. Now, I'm not talking about we have to go back to Dokken with clean vocals and, you know, that sort of stuff. No, I get it. I get why modern metal fans wouldn't like Dokken. But we can have musicality like Lamb of God and, you know, some of that stuff. And still, and we can have that musicality and still be, you know, rational. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to push the envelope of noise to create modern metal. and some of these bands do. No, I mean, probably as far as I go is for the French band Hypnose. I really like their stuff. But it's musical. It's got an actual melody. And, you know, one of my favorites also, which really gone kind of down the Dokken hole with their much newer stuff. And by the Dokken hole, what I mean is they've gone from, like, what I would consider to be truly, like, fringe or edge metal to pretty much more like melodic commercial stuff would be In This Moment. I absolutely loved early In This Moment. And there were threads of that melodic Dokken style in This Moment's early stuff, which is what I loved. I loved the fact that it was so damn heavy, but it also had that musicality to it. So I'm a big fan. But their newer stuff, it's just way too commercial for me. So I'm in the same boat. There's a level of commerciality to the music where I just turn off, you know, and it works. That's the same cycle that we've seen music in forever. The first, what I consider to be hugely successful metal band might be Motley Crue. And Motley Crue's first album, Too Fast for Love, and then their second album, Shout at the Devil, were massively successful and basically just, you know, what would be considered a pretty much all-out assault on metal at the time. And then, of course, they continued to get more and more commercial as things went on with Dr. Feelgood and then Girls, Girls, Girls. And by that time, I was already checked out. I was not interested because they weren't doing the kind of metal that I wanted to hear. And that's when I started to explore bands that were much heavier, like Slayer and Anthrax and Metallica. And once I found thrash metal, which is what it was called back then, more extreme metal, I was hooked. That was it. It was game over. It was game over. I was hooked. So those are definitely the areas where I go for my metals. Definitely the more extreme side. The current stuff that I really listen to a lot now would be Opeth, which they kind of went off the extreme side and now they're coming back. I like Dream Theater, also not terribly extreme, but probably we're talking about Lamb of God, Testament, Anthrax, and even so, Testament and Anthrax and those sorts of bands are super old school. So we're talking about dudes, when you go see them live, there's a good chance they might be rolling around in wheelchairs. You just never know. They could surprise you. You know, these are not young guys anymore. These are dudes who were in their teens in the 80s or 70s. So, yeah. But the beautiful thing is, if I go to, like, I'm going to see Slayer in next month in Hershey. And I know when I go there, I'm going to see plenty of people that are older than me. Probably guys who went to the show at the Airport Music Hall back in the 80s and stuff. Just like I was, but they were the older guys who were actually old enough to drink and sitting in the bar. And then I know I'm going to see 20-somethings and even some younger folks with their parents who come to see Slayer. This is a band who's been relevant for almost 4 decades. And that's pretty unbelievable considering they've never had a hit that was on the Billboard charts. Their stuff doesn't get played on the radio ever. Ever. You know, I might have heard Slayer on college radio stations maybe in the early 90s, but the stuff does not get played on the radio, and yet somehow they've managed to put together 4 decades of great music and sell out venues. And these guys are in their, I think, early 70s, late 60s. They're not young dudes. And it's a testament to how little good metal and quality music we're really seeing be released these days, that bands like Slayer and even, you know, even bands like Motley Crue with Vince Neil looking like he's eaten every sandwich ever made. The fact that those guys are still selling out tours and that sort of stuff. But I really dislike the live. I really dislike the live, the situation with live music now. When before COVID, I could go. There were 4 or 5 different clubs that I could go to see some lesser bands. Like I could go see Overkill, and I could even Mastodon and bands like that. I could go see in smaller venues, smaller clubs for, you know, $20 to $25 tickets. And after COVID, there is nothing that's not in a massive stadium. And I'm paying $100 to go see it. Basically, that's how this works now. They're all touring with, 4 or 5 different acts, and you have to pay a ridiculous amount of money to go see them. There are no more small clubs. Ticketmaster and all those stupid ticket things have managed to push every small venue completely out of business. But I think even more so, the fact that the pipeline is dry. There are no young artists in that genre coming up and playing music and trying to get recognized or noticed. And I think one of the reasons is certainly the social wars and culture. Because all of the things that people wanted to be a rock star for when I was growing up as a kid have now become, shall we say, social booby traps. You know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and parties and women and all of those things. Well, you really can't even pretend that you like that stuff anymore because people seem to get offended. So why would you want to be a rock star if you can't do the stuff rock stars are supposed to do? If it's all socially unacceptable. And even our stupid punk bands, which are supposed to be absolutely against authority, when those guys come out during COVID and they're telling you to just obey, that's not punk anymore. I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. These are the people that used to say, do what you want. Now they're saying, obey. No, sorry, but that's not punk. That's... Oh, they're an embarrassment. They're an embarrassment to the people that they used to be. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean. You're not supposed to... punk is not that. It's not do what the government tells you. It's do what you want. It's fight the authority. But, you know, for a period of time, a couple of years ago, they were all telling you to go do this and it's for the good of everybody. Yeah, that's about as punk as hugging puppies and kissing babies. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. We all got to grow up eventually, but the point is, man, that was a significant embarrassment to the music world. And after you see something like that and you're a kid, why the heck would you ever want to pick up a guitar? Because you don't have any heroes anymore. I mean, dudes that were against authority and establishment and everything else are out there telling you to go do what everyone else is doing. And it's for the good of whatever. Yeah. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You can't talk about, you can't partake in, you can't even pretend that you enjoy it anymore. So the whole rock and roll scene, the thing that you grew up as a kid wanting, that I want to be a rock star because, no, you're not even allowed to like that stuff anymore. So it's not really a wonder that kids aren't picking up the guitar or, or the bass or the drums. So it's not a surprise that the small venues that used to be these little clubs where you could go see a show for $20 and enjoy some good metal, maybe even a national act a lot of times. I mean, I went to see The Sword and Mastodon and probably 100 other bands in small clubs. I've seen Slayer in a club that was no bigger than your standard Applebee's. And that's the kind of stuff that used to happen back in the day. These guys would go around and play these clubs, these small clubs. And those bands don't exist anymore. Or the bands I'm talking about, they exist. And they only do stadium shows where I have to pay $150 to go see them. But the venues and the bands that used to fill these little clubs, they don't exist anymore. Because, well, being a rock star is not cool anymore, I guess. Standing behind a sampler and just talking, that seems to be the cool thing. But unfortunately, most of the people standing behind the sequencer and the computer and then talking, they don't have anything interesting to say. If they did, or they, and not only do they not have anything interesting to say, they're not musical. They're not catchy. It's repetitive and lame and just overtly sexual for the sake of trying to be racy. It's not anything musical about it. It's no wonder that it's being rejected by young people because, I mean, people have to have taste for something. And it's not going to be unmusical, bad lyrics, stuff that doesn't have any meaning other than to try to offend you or whatever. And don't get me wrong, in the 80s, we had plenty of music that was solely designed to offend you. And I'm not going to say that I didn't love the 2 Live Crew stuff and that sort of stuff. But even that made at least some attempt at being musical. You know what I mean? They made some attempt to be musical. There was a chorus. There was that sort of stuff. I'm not even really sure that there's that. I mean, I think if last year's Super Bowl halftime show proves anything, it's that there is a massive divide between what younger people think is music and what is music. Because that was just trash. It was just absolute trash. Just being offensive for the sake of being offensive. Back in the day, we had the same kind of thing. especially when rap first started to hit the airwaves and first started to come onto radio stations. We had, the cycle of music sped up for a short period of time where we had a lot of local rappers, and they would do music, especially on this Philly station I used to listen to. They would basically have diss tracks where they would, the whole purpose of the song was to make fun of another rapper, probably a local rapper, and then within a week and a half or whatever, that other rapper would have a response track, generally to the exact same beat and the exact same music. So it was basically just different words to the same music. So we had the same garbage growing up as kids, and I'm not going to lie, for a short period of time, it was entertaining. But it was in and out in the blink of an eye, and, they stopped doing it because they realized that it was never anything really sustainable. They had this piece of music that was interesting and popular for about 2 weeks until the update came out. So, in the short term, the selling cycle was great, but there was never any long-term success. You weren't going to be listening to it 6 or 8 months from now because, well, that was irrelevant. There was 3 responses on top of that. So they realized the cycle wasn't great or whatever. I don't know. I don't feel like the modern stuff, especially modern hip-hop or whatever it's being called these days, is any better. I think it's actually pretty much the same. It's just meant to be offensive for the sake of being offensive. That's not what makes good music, What makes good music is not that. I know, very expressive. We're laying it all out there today. But, I'm not saying that there isn't any good modern music either. Don't get me wrong. I think there's plenty of good modern music, especially when you get into the metal sphere. There's some really heavy stuff. It's really good. But as far as modern pop goes, there's a reason why Taylor Swift dominates and sells so many records. I mean, she still gets it. She still understands how to be musical and how to do controversy in a way that's tasteful and fun and, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Admittedly, she does spend most of her time trying to make sure that everything she does, your parents would feel was okay. And to a lot of dudes, especially when I was growing up as a kid, I wasn't going to be any interested in that at all. That was never going to be my thing for sure. I wasn't interested in music that they were doing that was trying to appeal to making my parents happy that I was listening to it. So I get it. But some of this stuff, oh my God. Hey, One Punch, good morning. We actually went live on time today at 10 a.m., which is the plan, to try to go live at 10 a.m. every single day. But we'll see what happens. Looks like we lost connection on TikTok, but now we got it back. Yay! Music that we listened to growing up has now kind of come full circle. And a lot of people are listening to, it's 7:30 in the morning here, I'm half asleep. Sorry, One Punch. That's kind of why I pushed it to 10 o'clock at least, because I want West Coasties who want to be able to join the stream to be able to join the stream. But, yeah, it's still kind of early. Actually, if I'm being honest, 10 o'clock is too early for me. I do not want to be up that early. But I am. We do what we can. So, I don't want to be up at 10 a.m. any more than you want to be up at 7:30. So, either way. Yeah, so I kind of went into the state of modern music and the fact that a lot of stuff that we grew up with is charting again. It's popular on TikTok. Kids are not using modern music in their stuff. They are using they're using stuff we listened to growing up, or sort of growing up, middle life. So anyway, You're good. My kids wake up at this time, so it's perfect. Well, that's cool. Early birds catch the viewers. Well, I don't. I hope that bears itself out. But I am actually just about to end this stream because I have exhausted my conversation as it pertains to the fact that young folks are doing a lot of viewing of, or they're doing a lot of listening to music that is not necessarily of their generation, which I find super interesting. Super interesting. I did something really wrong today, though. I did not plug back in my Ethernet, which explains why I dropped a little bit on TikTok there for a moment. I was working on a machine that Michael is going to use for his live TikToks, and I have it plugged into the Ethernet cable, and I have my main machine on Wi-Fi at the moment, so it perfectly explains why my stream is kind of bubbling along and struggling just a little bit. You know? These little details are important. God, sometimes I'm so stupid. But it is what it is. Which version are you watching, One Punch? You watch the horizontal version. My favorite, personally. Because you can actually see a background and know that I have one. Oh, man. It's interesting because today's music is shitty. No, I think you've used the appropriate language, to be honest with you. And I know that young people will tell you, oh, you're just a boomer. You just don't get it. And it's like, no. You know, the thing is I do get it. Because I listened to the most offensive music that I could find when I was growing up as a kid, too. That's part of growing up. That's part of, you know, that's part of the process of being young. You listen to stuff that you think your parents wouldn't agree to or wouldn't understand. But the simple fact is that even the stuff that was offensive back when I was growing up as a kid was at least musical. Today's stuff that's meant to be offensive, it's not even musical. It's repetitive. It's the same. I mean, they're just stealing a beat from some song in the 80s, and they're basically talking in an offensive way over top of the beat that they stole from somebody in the 80s. And because they're not competent enough to actually write a full song, it's just repetitive. It's just repetitive. So I get the offensive piece. Hell, I listened to Slayer growing up as a kid, where there's a song that talks about Auschwitz and the Holocaust. But believe me when I tell you, that was pretty offensive. You know, I'm pretty sure that's still offensive. But, you know, it was musical. You know, and it said something. It said something more than where you stick your pinky and stuff. It really did. You know, it had more meaning. And there was pop music that was offensive as well. But offensive in a way that was clever. Like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Relax. Sorry, that's a foul song. It's still a foul song. It will still make your mother blush if she hears you listening to it. However, it was musical and it was clever. There's nothing on the radio today or in pop culture music that's anywhere even close to that good. I'm sorry for folks that disagree, but you're wrong. You are wrong. You know, if you're going to be offensive, at least be clever. And if you're going to be offensive, at least be musical. Because, you know, when you combine offensive, clever, and musical, you actually make music that makes it more than 15 minutes of fame. You make Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax, which you're still going to go out to the club and listen to on Friday night. You know what I'm saying? If I go out to the club, I'm barely going to hear modern music because it's offensive, sure. It'll make your mom cringe, sure. But not for the reasons you might think. Because mom's already heard all that stuff before. She's cringing because it's so damn repetitive and bad. And it's reusing a track from the 80s badly. You know? That's why she's cringing. It's not because of where the guy put his finger and had to tell you on radio or, you know, in music. It's just ridiculous. It sucks. Modern music sucks, and young people are figuring it out, which is why they are using older music in their videos and stuff on TikTok. And I applaud it. I applaud it. You know what? If you should go out there and create some music that's good. Music is supposed to be an artistic means of delivering a message. Absolutely. That is absolutely true, One Punch. I totally agree. And we've taken the artistic part out and basically just added in technically savvy. He's technically savvy enough to steal a beat from a song in the 80s, modify it in such a way that he combines this and that, and then he says stupid things over top of it with a chorus that's barely listenable. It's just a repetitive word or something. I mean, I can't believe that's how bad it's gotten, but that's how bad it's gotten. Why can't we see songs like All That She Wants Is Another Baby? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that ship has sailed, and I'm just going to be perfectly honest. I think if I was a young person, if I was born, you know, in the 2010s or something, when I had my kids, I think there was a fair assumption that they were going to have the opportunity to live a better life than I did when I had my kids. I am not so optimistic anymore that children born in the next 5 or 6 years are going to have an opportunity to have a better life than I do, or specifically that their parents do. Because I think that things are getting so far off the rails at this point that, yeah, I don't know. I certainly felt a lot more optimistic about the future when I had my kids than I feel about the future now. And maybe that's just because I'm old. I don't know. But, you know, there are a lot of people in my age category that don't understand technology or culture at all. The flip side to that is I've been a techie all my life. I understand modern technology maybe more than a lot of younger people do. And I also have continued to be involved in music and pop culture and that sort of stuff. So while I don't always get it, and I don't always understand it, and I'm certainly not always with it, I'm familiar with it. I understand it, you know? So, I don't know. The world's getting darker and darker. I totally agree, Mr. One Punch. But man, I can't believe that it has been... How long has it been? It's been a good 50 minutes. 50 minutes, almost. Man, that's pretty good. I like that. I wished that I had been smart enough to... I wish that I had been smart enough to actually do this on Ethernet instead of, you know, what I did it on, which is Wi-Fi. But, you know, I'm stupid. So it is what it is. I'm gonna close the stream down, and I'm going to unplug my Ethernet, plug it back into my computer. So we've had 3 successful days live streaming to TikTok. We have not had a chatter in TikTok yet actually say hi, other than Lego Tech Mike, big follower of the channel, so that doesn't really count. We have had a pretty decent amount of success for our second full week on YouTube, both vertical and horizontal. We've had good chat participation on both of those on different given days, and I really do appreciate you guys popping by, hanging out, having fun, contributing to the conversation. We are going to start to push the live stream a little bit. We have to do something, obviously, in this space that's going to appeal to younger people on TikTok. So we're going to do everything we can to add some elements to our live stream that can encourage people to participate. Maybe we get our first chats and that sort of stuff on TikTok. So that's what we're going to be all about next week. We're going to be adding features and that sort of stuff. But the video that you're going to see this week come out, I think you're really going to like. I'm going to show you how to multi-stream. I'm going to show you how to set up multi-chat. And I'm going to show you exactly how I'm streaming to TikTok. So it's going to be a fun one, hopefully. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I have the best audience ever in the whole world. So I do enjoy when folks find me, come and hang out. This right here, this space, this is Muffin to Say. And I'm having fun. I hope you guys are. And I hope you join me on Monday, where we're going to chill out and talk about some more stuff that doesn't really matter. But, we're going to have fun with it. Love you guys. Take care.